You know, he has an extensive background in the restaurant industry, as does Brian. And some of you probably don't know, he came from Longhorns as well as Cheesecake Factory, where he was a GM for both of those organizations and had a very successful career. I think he's been now with Jim and Nick's for 3 years. 3 years, 3 fabulous years, where he was the GM of not only the South Cobb location, but also Hiram, correct? And now he serves as Director of Catering universally for Jim and Nick's and does a fantastic job, and I'm thrilled to be able to just introduce him because he is a huge and valuable asset to this organization. And then also, of course, we're here to hear Brian talk. And Brian Lyman is fantastic with his background, and of course it's in your bulletin that you've got for today, but just some highlights. He's got over 30 years of experience in the restaurant industry. He really knows what he's talking about from all facets, and just some of the points to note, he comes from, I think he started his career with Houston's, and then later on moved to the Cooker restaurants and had some good bootstrapping through those experiences. And then later on, he went to join his mentors, and I'm just going to read here, Phil Hickey Jr. and Michael J. Huffler. He was manager partner there for the Green Hills Grill in Nashville. And one of the things to note there, and this is what's important to note, not only did he have a great relationship with some good mentors, but was his track record. I think that's what we all care about, was his track record. And it says right here, in black and white, he enjoyed 5 consecutive years of double-digit sales growth. That right there is worth mentioning again. So I wanted to make sure and point that out. You know, he served as Vice President of Operations and also Development for Ted's Montana Grill, which we're all familiar with that brand and how successful it's been. It was, what, 40 restaurants, I think, that were open nationwide in just 5 years. So I think everyone in the room has something valuable to learn from Brian Lyman today, and I'm so privileged to be able to introduce him.
Greetings, welcome. To say it's an honor would be an understatement. I listened to a lot of the introductions around the room, and I thought to myself, why am I not sitting there and they should be up here, in fact, doing all the talking. I'll do my best to fill up a little bit of your afternoon and talk a little bit about Jim and Nick's, a little bit about myself, and really why we're here today. Actually, I think we should do this more often. I don't know that we ever get together as restaurateurs to talk one-on-one or one-on-30 in this kind of environment to kind of share secrets. And Mike and I were talking and said, well, just how much do we share? You know what? The way I look at it is there's a very big pie out there, and sharing is what we do to help each other get along in this world. To kind of keep it all for ourselves, it's just what works for us, and it may or may not work for you. It may not be applicable, it may be. I will tell you that when you hear that you've been in business 30 years, I remember others being introduced 10 years ago thinking, wow, they're old and they've been around a long time. And here I stand before you as a guy who's been in the business 30 years, tag I'm it. And that said, let me tell you first a little bit about Jim and Nick's. I think I would like to start there. Jim and Nick's started 25 years ago. This will be our 25th anniversary. It's a family-owned business, locally owned and operated, and out of Birmingham, Alabama. I have 5 partners, Nick Pahakis being one of them, his father, Jim. Rest his soul is in heaven, and as I said, far be it for me to put my name on the sign in lieu of Jim. So father and son team started this out of Birmingham, and really up till about the year 2000, they only had 4 restaurants. That's when I met Nick Pahakis, and when he decided that he wanted to go outside of Birmingham. And they developed a program called a local ownership. And that's what I am. I'm a local owner, and the emphasis is going to be on local. Our premise is pretty simple. And if you look at what I've done in my career, most everything has been fresh, scratch, honest food, authentic food, and that's no exception here. We take a lot of pride in the fact that these are old school, time-honored recipes. There is no freezer in the restaurant, which is something to be said, I think, in this industry when things get homogenized and institutionalized over time, where there's cost-cutting efforts and reasons that we would want to try to save money by outsourcing and doing other things. But I really believe there's a movement afoot about going back to sustainable foods, food farm to table. We're all familiar with slow food and things of that nature, and so we're proud of always been a part of that. We're closely aligned with the Southern Foodways Alliance. Is anyone in the room familiar with that? SFA? great group of people, and if you don't know them, I encourage you to get to know them. And all that we do, there's a saying, there's easier ways to do barbecue, but don't worry, we wouldn't think about it. It takes up to 14 hours to sometimes do some of these meats. We have 8 different proteins that smoke 24/7. We're constantly busy in that regard. We wind up doing roughly, from a business model standpoint, about 40% off-premise business. And when you do that, you talk about a lot of moving parts. When I say moving parts, that means you can get Jim and Nick's multiple ways. You can get it dine-in, you can get it carry-out, you can get it drive-through, which is just an oxymoron in the fine or full-service world, that you'd actually have a drive-through on the backside, but it represents 17% of our business. You can also get it as far as catering as well. So there's a lot of ways to enjoy Jim and Nick's, but with all those moving parts and everything that goes with it, we find ourselves a little challenged. And I think that's really where all of this started, was when Deborah phoned me one day and said, any chance you could tell the story? And I said, what story is that? And we started talking about 2009. I said, I don't know about you, but I thought 2009 was a pretty good year. And she says, you're one of the few that actually had that perspective. But I guess what I'd like to talk about is grabbing market share, about growing your business. And when we got finished talking about it, the title kind of came to us to the degree being up in a down market. At the time, throughout 2009, I only had 3 restaurants. I had Hiram, South Cobb, and Forsyth. Those were the 3 I had. As it turns out, one of my partners was not doing as well, and in November he decided to go ahead and sell out his shares to me. And I will tell you that they're a tale of two different operations. All 3 of the stores that I'm a part of, much thanks to Mike and Jennifer and the teams I'm blessed to have, are up in sales over prior year. And we can talk a little bit about that as to how we got that. I can tell you, somebody the other day, or just recently, said, you know, your store in Swanee seems to be doing real well. I said, actually, they're down probably about 10%. Conyers is off 15%. So I think we should spend a little time just talking about the same concept, but we've got 2 different parallels at play here. The other pieces of that is we talked about spinning plates, and there's a piece of paper in front of you that I couldn't even tell you when or where I developed that, but 2009 was a slippery slope because I really just got lucky to the degree that I'm going to come back to spinning plates in a minute and tell you, here's a fact. In 2008, our catering sales were $400,000. 2009, they were $1 million. Last year, we did about $15.5 million in sales on an aggregate of these 5 restaurants, and this year we're projected to do somewhere around $16 million in sales. We anticipate growing catering from $1 million from last year's basis to $1.5 million this year. Now, that may seem aggressive, but again, I go back to wanting to take market share. I'm competitive by nature in a nice and friendly way. I think all of us are trying to get our piece of the pie. It didn't come easy to the degree that when I say it's a slippery slope, spinning plates comes full circle back to day-to-day operations. There's no silver bullet for, I'm going to, by the way I speak, I'm going to tell you that I'm going to bounce around a little bit, so bear with me on this. But I think it's important to understand that there is no one single thing you can do. In our business, it's all about multitasking. And I can tell you that in the way we were able to achieve 2009, the spinning plates aspect of it was I spent a lot of energy out in the community using the resources that we've applied here at Jim and Nick's to help ourselves succeed. And that's where I put all my energy and effort.